Ladies and gentlemen, independent Americans around the country, around the world, inside Ukraine, inside Russia, anywhere you can hear my voice. The war rages on inside Ukraine. The world is focused, and this show is focused. And I'm going to continue to try to bring you authentic, real, powerful, important leaders from all angles of this conflict that will define our generation and much more. And the man joining us now is an old friend of mine, a personal hero, a former colleague, a guy who represents the best of what this country is all about. And I'm very happy that we're able to make this happen, given the circumstances that we'll talk more about in a second. But live from Kyiv, recorded from Kyiv, is my good friend, the great and powerful Quan Nguyen. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Paul, for having me on the show.
So we go way back, man. We go way back.
We
We've
do.
been colleagues for I don't know over a decade. We worked
Yep.
together at IAVA. We'll
Yes.
get more into that. You were the lead for us on a suicide campaign. You were the lead for us on a
Yep.
tour with Lincoln Park. But you've been
Yes.
right. But right now, you're in Kyiv, and it's an honor to talk to you. I'm glad we were able to make this happen. We're on Zoom. You may have to drop off if there's an air raid or something else.
Right.
But let me just start by thanking you for being here and asking you the same question I ask everybody, but has a lot more power when I ask you right now. Where are you, and how are you?
Yep. I am in Kyiv, Ukraine. I am doing well. I physically, I'm a little bit tired. Mentally, I love it. I'm charged because I just feel that what I'm doing is therapeutic instead of breaking stuff, blowing stuff up. I get to rebuild stuff. And I didn't realize how therapeutic it was until, until I've been doing it. So yeah, I feel great, Paul.
Just because I want to pull this apart in a lot of different ways. Have you ever
Hmm.
felt like this before? I mean, we've talked with Matt Gallagher and others about how
Yeah.
this feels like the fight of our
Yeah.
time, and maybe even more pure in its focus than what we experienced in Iraq and Afghanistan. You did
Yep.
tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. You were a Marine infantry soldier.
Hmm.
Does this feel different, even more just than anything you've been a part of?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would have to say yes. I was thinking about what we were doing with Lincoln Park. It felt amazing back then. We were helping our community. And I think this one, I could change my mind, but right now it feels even better because I don't know these people. It's complete strangers. So I think that's what makes it feel a lot better. And I hope when I say that, I don't, or people don't think that I'm disparaging our veterans community. That's not it. It's just, it's a different feeling, and I'm trying to explain it, and I don't know if I can do it justice or not.
I think you definitely can. Let's walk it back, Quan. You were where were you living before you got to
Mm-hmm.
Kiev, and explain to folks how this happened. How did you go
Yeah.
from your home to Kiev in a matter of weeks? Take us through that journey if you can, please.
Yes. So I've been living in a suburb of Salt Lake City, Utah, for about the past 7 or 8 years. And leading up to Russia invading Ukraine, a good friend of mine I'd served with, he is an expat living in Ukraine. He's been living in Ukraine since 2008, and know him very well. Former Special Forces guy, uses GI Bill to go and be an executive chef. He's owned a few restaurants all over the world, and just really nice guy. I've never heard him yell. That's the type of guy that he is. And as much as I think I'm a decent person, I yell. Unfortunately, I lose my temper, and so knowing him throughout these years and knowing his demeanor, talking to him leading up and then during the invasion, uh, after Russia invaded, I could feel that he was definitely getting beat up. He was doing it by himself. So what he was doing was he used to live in Kiev, and then he moved to Lviv October last year, and it was pure spidey senses. He felt there was a shift going on, and he figured, you know what, I'm going to move to Lviv. and not only that, but it's a beautiful town. My gosh, I absolutely love it. And so he started having friends from Kiev who wanted to get out of the country, stay at his house. So it just started out as friends and family. And then it just turned into complete strangers who knew people by word of mouth. And so every time I'm talking to him, I've got him on speakerphone, and my wife is hearing all the conversations. And one day I basically looked at her, and I guess I must have had some kind of puppy eyes, because she said, I know what you want to do. Go ahead. And I can't believe that she is actually letting me do this, because there are times when I think about this and I'm thinking, wait a second, what person in their right mind is going to let their husband go overseas? I don't have a weapon except my mind, my street smarts, my wits, and help complete strangers. But yeah, Amy is an amazing person. So that's what I'm doing here.
So take me through that. You got a buddy who's on the ground in Ukraine. Your wife gives you the
Mm-hmm.
okay. You're not there formally through, the
Nope.
diplomatic channels, which is
Nope.
how it sounds like a lot of folks, first responders,
Yes.
if you will, right? This is kind of
Right.
the digital Dunkirk that we saw in Afghanistan. This network of vets,
Oh my
especially,
gosh.
right?
Yeah.
That many of them,
Amazing.
I think it's important. Many of them are on the humanitarian front. We know that. We
Yep.
know groups like Team Rubicon, but
Mm-hmm.
we also know
Yes.
there's a servant spirit in our community. So how did you logistically, you get on a plane in Salt Lake
Mm-hmm.
City, and then take us
Right.
through how long that takes and how
Yeah.
you eventually got to Kiev?
Right. So there was a lot of planning. I didn't just pick up my bags and go. I knew that I asked Rob what they needed. So obviously during the first days, it was medical supplies, IFACs. So I started a nonprofit, 501c3. I put it out there asking for donations, obviously put my own money into it, grabbed a bunch of medical supplies and anything I can think of. And but we talked about a lot of different things prior to, and the big question was, why am I going there? Am I going to provide any impact, or am I taking up space? Because there's a lot of do-gooders, but if I am just jamming up the logistics when important people, for example, I think medics who are coming over here are definitely more important than me. There was a little bit of back and forth, and obviously there was an option for me to just go to the border. And at some point, we realized that, okay, I've got some skills from my background that I can definitely make an impact. So I took a flight to Krakow, and then from Krakow, took the bus to Przemyśl. And then from then on, I didn't have a way in. I just asked around and got onto this bus. And even the way leading up to it, at one point, I think I was texting my friends like, this feels like part of Taken. This guy's asking me to come into his warehouse. I'm the only one here. So here's my location. And if you don't hear from me, you know my last location. And got onto the bus, and they drove across. So the bus that I got onto, they were ferrying Ukrainian refugees into Poland, and then they would turn around and go back. And so I basically got on that bus. I paid them a couple $100 to do it. It was legitimate. I got my papers checked, everything stamped, whatnot. And then I come in the middle of the night in Lviv and find my buddy's apartment, and we go from there.
Wow. Now, I want to go deeper into what you guys are doing there, but I want to go back to
Mm-hmm.
the why, because I asked Matt Gallagher this
Yep.
question in the last episode. It was really powerful. And I think some folks understand it, some folks don't.
Yep.
I feel a pull. I think a lot of us who've been in the service or in the
Mm-hmm.
humanitarian space feel a pull. But Quan, for you, why are you there, and why did you go?
Yeah, I think there's a deeper level for me. I think you know that I was born in Vietnam, in Saigon in '72. I saw the fall of Saigon. I remember getting shelled, getting rocketed, tanks rolling through the streets. I remember escaping Vietnam, at least trying twice. First time we didn't succeed, and our boat was stranded out there. My dad was put in a re-education camp. Eventually we did succeed, but we were in refugee camps for a while, almost a year. And I remember how horrible the conditions were, rats running around. And I remember how kind the people were at this one refugee camp. It was like in the middle of a park, but it was surrounded, I guess like a moat, but it was more like the way that they distribute water. And I remember the residents would ride their bicycles by and throw over food. And I just, yeah, so for me, I've always had empathy for refugees. This one is a no-brainer for me. What happened in Afghanistan with our interpreters and our friends, I donated like anybody, but I did have an opportunity to go. I was asked by some people because I do know that area well, but I didn't. So I felt guilty. So I think that's the why is the sense, the pull of what we do, but being a refugee, I can only imagine. So talking to these people, it almost makes me think of the journey that my family and I went through, except that we were living in a communist country. So going from one city to the next, you actually had to split up the family because back then they worried about the brain drain. After a while, they didn't care, just like Cuba, right? And so from going from one city to the next, you had to check into the police station. So if you were there as a family, they could figure out like, yeah, you're trying to escape. But if you split the family unit up, which is what we did, all we had was whatever bag that we had. So it brings memories back, which is interesting because I may not remember what I had for dinner 2 nights ago, but there's certain parts in my childhood that just are seared for whatever reason. So that's the why.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so important. I was going to ask you about this amazing journey you've had, Quan, where you've been, a refugee yourself, and now you're helping another generation of refugees.
Full circle.
You've been on the front lines of many fights, and in the Marine Corps, you were an infantry guy, right? So you know what it's like to kick indoors. You know what it's like to carry a weapon. Mm-hmm. You know what it's like to fire weapons, right, and be fired at. Can you talk about why you chose to do what you're doing now as a humanitarian? Some vets are picking up guns and going in and looking for that part of the fight. You're doing something that is really humble and I think important. But can you talk about why you made the choice to go there as a humanitarian and not as a soldier?
Yes, I think if I weren't married, if I was younger, as you know, I'm about to pick up my AARP card here pretty soon.
You don't look like it, man. You don't look like it. I'm drinking what you're drinking. You know that. We've talked about this before. You look a lot younger than you are.
Oh, it's I think that sense of excitement never goes away. Having said that, I did practice what I preach coming back, and through my work with your organization, IAVA, which is get therapy, talk about it. And in talking it through, you're able to work some things out. So for that adrenaline part, I ride my motorcycle, I skydive. So it takes care of that. But I did think about, should I join the Legion or should I do this? And at the end of the day, I have a family. I've picked up a weapon. I've been there, although I think if I did pick up a weapon, the justification is there, it's righteous. But what I can offer is, why not utilize that part of it? And that's what I thought. And I even, we talked this through, my wife and even with my friend, which is, okay, sure, you come over here. I'm always looking at things like a chess game. Got to be a couple steps ahead. Somebody's going to ask about my background, and then I'm sure there's going to be somebody that may ask, hey, well, if that's the case, why don't you pick up a weapon for us, etc. And actually, I have, and I've turned it down because it, what I'm doing and the feeling that I get from it validates what I thought I was here to do, which is repair stuff, not take another life. I'll defend myself and my loved ones here and my friends. Don't get me wrong, but I not carrying a weapon. All I'm doing is trying to do what I can on the humanitarian side.
Mm. Blessed be the peacemakers, man. It's come full
Yeah,
circle, and now you're over there. Now,
yeah,
a huge part of our work together was mental health. I mean, you were ahead of
mm-hmm,
the curve in helping us explain the importance of mental health and mental health injury. We did a huge campaign with Lincoln Park,
yep,
and for folks who don't know, you were the lead guy. You were like the head of our crew on I don't know how many dozens of cities where we'd have veterans come
yeah,
out. They'd be on stage. They'd do meet and greets with Chester and
yeah,
Mike and the whole crew. And then we tragically lost Chester to
yeah,
suicide. And I bring
yep,
this up because you and I know that when the war ends, the pain really begins. And
yep,
the part of this that I don't think Americans fully understand, unless they've been in combat or around combat, is the mental health toll. So, knowing what you
mm-hmm,
know and being where you've been, can you talk about the mental health environment that you're in right now in Kyiv?
mm-hmm,
And in particular for the kids. I don't think we're talking about this enough because the human cost
yep,
is going to be
agreed.
tremendous. But can you put us in your shoes over
Yeah,
there and give us a sense of what that environment is like?
yeah. So part of what we do is all grassroots. It's through word of mouth, and we talk to a lot of people. And there have been some people that have said, that, there are students that say, geez, instead of worrying about my exam, I have to worry about, am I going to make it tomorrow? And then I've got the parents who are saying, I have to leave my husband behind. I have to leave my parents behind. And then today was a perfect example. Bought some groceries for some family, and the woman, talked about her daughter. In the beginning, they would go down to the bomb shelter, but after a while, the kids just could not handle that, so they just stayed in their apartment and they took a gamble. So that's the kind of mental environment that they're going through, and there isn't a way for these folks to get it. Having said that, I have been contacted by some folks who do telemedicine, and hopefully I can look into that. But supposedly it's available to any of the refugees. But yeah, I think that's a huge part. You and I are used to it. The shelling. uh, when we have air raid sirens, everybody's running. I just kind of lackadaisically gaggle and find some place, and then when something is I can differentiate between outgoing versus incoming, and people ask me
Mm-hmm.
how I know that,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can tell how far it is, and I get that, well, it sounds a lot closer. Well, let me explain acoustics and why that is the case. And yeah, but this is their first experience in 2021, which is crazy. um, so yeah, that's the mental environment. Yeah.
I think it's so important that you've been telling these stories too, and I think Americans, can understand and empathize, but when they hear it through American eyes, it's almost like a translation. And I think having you and
Yeah.
Matt and others on the ground there is important. Having your voices out in the media is even more important because you're
Yep.
humanizing it. This
Yep.
is a really. It's funny the things you remember about combat, right? And a couple of weeks ago, we had a big ice storm up where I live, and everybody had generators going. And my
Right.
kids
Oh,
could
I know
hear
where
the
you're going.
generators. And I said to my boys, I said, guys, I remember hearing the generators for a year because nobody in Iraq had power and generators were
Right.
everywhere. And I just got used to that sound. And it took me down a
Yep.
path of explaining to them
Hmm.
just the kind of grating sound of
Wow.
generators that you almost forgot about. Can you
Yes.
talk about you are a well trained, highly trained, multiple combat tour Marine. Um, Part of what I think is helpful in times like this is that hope and connection. There is a connection among
Hmm.
that community that's like nothing we've ever
Yeah.
seen. There's a spirit, right? A fight that I've never seen, and you're on the ground with. But can you talk about the fighting spirit and what you're seeing on the ground there that the news may
Oh,
not be
yeah.
showing?
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I don't know if you can capture that because it's not just soldiers, it's students who, uh, they don't want to give up. And they're going to stay here. They're not going to leave the country. And if they need to pick up a weapon, they will. Definitely, when you talk to the soldiers, you've got your regular infantry, then you also have your territorial defense, and then you also have another layer behind that, basically the last line of defense, which they call the volunteer territorial defense. And it just sounds like what it is. It's lawyers, doctors, professors who are willing to pick up a weapon, and they're being trained by the local military folks, but they, and I've had a, yeah, I can hear rolling thunder there in the background. That's probably outside the city, but
Hold on, Quan. Can you tell us what you're hearing? Because folks can't hear. Explain what you're hearing
yeah,
now.
yeah, I believe that was outgoing artillery, but it's definitely way out of the city. So you hear that every now and then, and I'm high up enough where I can definitely hear it.
Hmm.
So I've had a chance to watch them train, and it's absolutely amazing. I saw a group after only 2 weeks move, communicate like I would expect first year infantry. And when you listen to them, and it's amazing. They're debriefing. It just blows my mind. And so, yeah,
Hmm.
that's the spirit of the local population.
Quan, for folks that are listening, you should definitely watch the video because you can see Quan's backdrop is what looks like a couple of apartment buildings behind you.
Hmm.
And I can't look at that and not imagine other cities in Ukraine that have been annihilated, right? That
Oh
are
gosh,
buildings like that
yeah,
being shelled. You were on Fox News a couple of days ago
yep,
and you were in a bunker or near a bunker.
yeah,
You had an air raid go off
I
before or
did,
during it.
I
Can
did,
can you talk about what your day to day has been like? Where exactly
yeah,
are you right now? It looks like you're in an
hmm,
apartment building, but I know you're
yep,
going in and out of bomb shelters, you're going in and out of
hmm,
homes, and talk about what you're doing with this new nonprofit that you've created.
yeah, yeah. It's like I was saying on that interview. Day to day is it's mundane. I'm grocery shopping. Yeah, there it is, rolling thunder again. Um, I am cleaning up. Oh yeah, I think of it as like, yeah, I can smell to the burning. I'm assuming there's a fire going on somewhere, but yeah, I can smell that, and
So you're looking
it
over
kind
your
of,
shoulder out the window.
yep,
You're looking, do you know which direction you're looking? Is it west or east, or you're looking out
yep,
to the edge of the city? Basically, it looks like
yep,
over your shoulder.
yeah, to the north of the city.
So
Yeah,
when you say rolling thunder, you're hearing artillery
yep,
cannons firing out.
yep,
And are you
exactly.
hearing much incoming too, or seeing any enemy aircraft or anything in your viewpoint, or is that beyond the horizon where you can see so far?
Yeah, not today, but definitely yesterday. I think that was the closest explosion to the point where I thought, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna put on my plate carrier and actually go down to the bunker. That because most of the time for me, and again, maybe I shouldn't be saying this because my wife will probably scream at me, but it's like, okay, here's another one. It's somewhere nearby. I'll just make sure that I get away from the windows, and that's about it. But yeah, the other day was a close one. Yeah.
But there's your experience is so valuable, and in so many ways, if you're in a bomb shelter with a bunch of civilians and they do or
Hmm.
don't know who you are,
Yeah.
you're in some ways you're so much more valuable, right? Than if
Yes, I
you're
am.
on the front line with a bunch of grunts. I mean, you're a
Yeah.
refugee who's been a Marine who could be in a bunker with kids and you might be the
Yes.
only trained fighter in
Yep.
that whole bunker. And your humility is so amazing, dude, because I've known you for a long time. You're always the guy who's willing to do the grunt work, doing what needs to be done. You did that for years when we worked together. So many times you do whatever it took to get the job done and to support the mission. And so now when you say, you're cleaning up, your grocery shopping, like that's what needs to get done, right? Especially
Yeah.
from folks that are trapped
Exactly.
there. And this
Right.
nonprofit you set up, can you explain the name of it? It's called
Yep.
Task Force 824, right? And it's
Yes.
taskforce824.org. Can you explain why you
Yes.
named it that and what you guys are doing?
Yeah. So basically, we kind of took I guess, a page out of Task Force Pineapple. 824 refers to the Day of Independence for Ukraine, 1991, from the Soviet Union, and I thought that was thinking about the name of the organization. Did I want to make it like the name that would be used for anything? And I said no. I want to make sure that it is very specific to this situation, and also it honors their independence. Because if you think about it, they 1994 they agreed to turn all their nuclear weapons to Russia, and the irony now is they Russians were supposed to, from my understanding, please correct me, to provide protection. So that's why I named it Task Force 824 for that specific reason.
Mm. Um, Quan, there's a lot of talk in the U.S. right now about whether or not we can do more. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a call for a no-fly zone. There's
Yeah.
Zelensky. I don't know if you see Zelensky's addresses every day or the
Yep.
people see them where
I
you are.
do.
People
Oh, I
see
do.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yep.
so, he's been calling out to the world to do more. They've got stingers. They've got javelins. He wants a no-fly zone. He wants more.
Yeah.
You've represented veterans at the highest levels of government. I think you've been to the White House with us, or
Yep.
definitely in
I
Congress at Storm the
was. Yeah.
Hill, right? We met with the First Lady and other people over the
Mm-hmm.
years. If you had Joe Biden's ear, what would you tell
Ooh.
him?
Yeah, I would say we should do everything that we can to stop this war. Having said that, I'm pragmatic. I know that we don't there's a chance that whatever we do could cause, who knows what the state of mind Putin's in. Um, but I think about at least the refugee corridors. We should find a way to protect that, because there's no reason. Yeah, there's. I understand that one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, but there's no way in heck that you can explain to me or rationalize why you would not let civilians leave, why you would fire on civilians. I'm sorry, as open minded as I can. So, in answer to your question, yeah, whatever. If President Biden was in front of me and I was asked what we could do, I would say do anything. And it's interesting because no matter where I go, in the Middle East, here, America is looked at as the conscience for the world. And the fact that we can't do anything is sad. It's embarrassing. So, and I don't want to get into politics because that's not what I'm about. And I want to focus on the humanitarian side. But yeah, there's got to be a way we can protect civilians.
Hmm.
So,
Thank you for that. I think, there's a power that I think Biden is underestimating something, and this is me speaking. I
mhm,
think there are people who are in America who are willing to die for this, who are willing to
yeah,
shed their blood for this, who consider it a
sure,
righteous cause. We called this company
yeah,
Righteous Media a long time ago, and now it's kind of come full circle. But Matt
mm,
Gallagher was willing to die for this. You're there right
um,
now. I mean, you were willing to die
yeah,
for this cause. I think it's
yeah,
a gut check moment for America where more engagement doesn't have to result in a nuke
hmm,
strike by Putin, but there is a
right,
feeling that we are willing to fight and die for this because it's
yep,
about so much more than Ukraine. Do you feel that same thing? I mean, you're there right now. I mean, I
yeah,
haven't
I
asked you.
do,
It's assumed, but you're willing to die for
yeah,
this cause.
yeah. it's just like I said in my interview, and any veteran, and the veterans who have reached out to me, I slow them down because I understand the excitement of it all, wanting to be, but I say you got to think about this. You got to think worst case scenario. You can be captured, and if you're captured, you could be used as propaganda, or you could just literally die. I mean, look at that. Like as I was waiting for that interview on Fox, they talked about a bomb shelter that took a direct hit and killed all the kids. So no matter where you are, if it's your time, it's your time. So yeah, it's I'm not looking to die. Don't get me wrong. I have plenty of ski runs to do, airplanes to jump out of, motorcycle rides to go on, you name it. But yeah, it is. It's just I can't explain why I would be willing to do that when I've got family, kids. I try. It's just that there sometimes it's something that's greater than you. And at one point we were talking. I know this may sound crazy, but at one point there was talk of, okay, well, maybe if we do get captured, that's fine. I mean, what's the worst they're going to do? Slap us around? Most of us have been to SEER school, and we're going to be used as political pawns. Great, at least that way. This was before the government's, the United States government's involvement, or a little bit more involvement. We were thinking, yeah, maybe that'll shine a light on the situation, but I think I'm glad that we walked away from that one, thinking how stupid that was. But I mean, it is a possibility. You never know. There's sympathizers running around. They've caught a few here in Kyiv throughout. So it's a risk that we take.
And I think you're being so candid, man. I'm so grateful for that, because when you've been in combat, when you've been in conflict, whether it's as a civilian or a soldier, you have these kinds of conversations, right? You have conversations about what if this happens? What would we do if this happens? And for you, it's a reality, right? So it's actually scenario planning. It's not just imagination fantasy. You're there. No. You have to think through multiple scenarios. So let me ask you, what do the people need there now? What do you need? What folks who are listening that want to help, what can they do to help you and the people you're serving?
What the people need is normal, everyday things. If you can think about medication, baby food, baby supply, diapers, feminine products, anything that you can think of a family that goes through and needs. Like today, I think I posted that picture, flour, some diapers, socks, anything. But I would say medical supplies, medication. We're trying to reach out to the pharmaceuticals and hoping that they'll work something out. Trying to think what else.
And Quan, one thing you said. One thing you said in an earlier interview, and we got a little bit of a chop there, which if there was ever an interview where you would understand technical difficulties, this is going to be one of them, right? But you said something that, and I remember this from IAVA, right? When we were working, we'd say, vets need, housing, right? Then somebody would send a bunch of shingles, and it's like, I can't do anything with shingles, right? In the same way, you can't do anything with like a jar of baby food, right? Somebody Amazoning you a jar of baby, but what you guys need is money, right? You're on the ground, you need money, right? The old saying, send lawyers, guns, and money. Like you need money, and folks can donate at TF824. It's TF824, right? .org.
824.org.
And that gives you money to be able to put it into play in the field out there. Right? Don't bother, sending Quan a bunch of fucking Amazon boxes right now, because that's not what he needs, right? Quan needs cash so he could go out and get what he needs. And also, we got to empower leaders like you that are on the ground, that are doing the things that our government can't do, won't do, might not have the dexterity to do. Quan, let me ask you, I hope you'll stick around for a couple more minutes
Oh
for our
yeah, of
Patreon members that have
course.
helped us keep this machine going. We'll ask you some more fun questions to give you a laugh and also help folks in our Patreon community get to know you a little better because
Yeah.
you're an incredible leader. I've known you for a long time. You're a man of honor. I, I love the shit out of you, man. You know that. I hope,
Thank
after
you. Yeah,
all we've been
and
through.
vice versa. Yeah.
Um, how long are you going to stay, man? How long are you going to stay and what happens next? What happens next?
Yeah. I can't stay here forever. I know that at some point I've got to go back. And I think when I do go back, I can be a voice again, shine the light on here, and possibly return. What I'm trying to do is set up a network that empowers the local people, so that when I'm not here, and that's why we went into Kyiv, was to try to figure out, okay, who are some of the volunteers, and there's plenty of people here, locals. That's basically what we want to do. But that's basically the long-term goal, is to have these different areas, geographical areas where we can coordinate. Because originally, when this thing started, it was all out of Lviv, which is fine. But I think sometimes you need to be boots on the ground and find out what's going on. And going back to what you're saying about the money, yeah, we've thought about, we've done the math on all the things that we could get shipped here. It doesn't make sense. So I basically turned around and asked people for money, because what I can do is go uh, and put that money back into the community.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I'm, grabbing bread from a bread maker, and today was a perfect example. I had to. I knew that some families needed groceries, so I went to the ATM, pulled it out, and luckily I was able to get the local currency, and it was perfect.
Mm.
But you're right. Empower the people who are on the ground to make those decisions. And I think about when back in the States with the nonprofits that I'm involved with, and one of them is CVMA, it's Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association. I love the fact that we've had people come through Utah, and they've reached out to the other VSOs. I won't say which ones, and the response these veterans in need get are, well, I've got to fill out this paperwork. It's going
Mm-hmm.
to take a few days, but they don't have a few days. They're trying to cross the country to do something, to get work, to interview. So we're able to, at our level, give them money or
Mm-hmm.
out of pocket and then get refunded. So I think you're absolutely right. Trust the people on the ground, on the front line.
Well, especially experienced, thoughtful planners,
Yep.
and people who are, you've been all around the world. You've been through a lot of shit. You're the
Yeah.
guy that if my family was back in, Kiev and I was on the front line, I'd want you in the
Yeah.
bunker with my kids and my family and my
Yeah.
parents. Um, Quan, the attack, a full attack, a broader attack on Kiev could come any minute now, any day
Yep.
now, right? They've been able to hold them off so far, but
Mm-hmm.
it feels like that great fight is imminent.
Yeah.
We are, of course, rooting and trying to support Ukraine
Yes.
in their win, which is now, I think, more realistic than most people imagined. There's going to come a point where you can't leave that city. Are you going to stay? And if that comes in the next 24, 48 hours, are you going to stay and fight and do what you can, or what are you going to do, man?
Yeah, that's something that a scenario that I play through. Technically, I should be leaving so I can get back to my family. So hopefully my wife catches that part. But I don't know. Honestly, I've thought about that day in and day out. But I do know this, that I have more of an impact getting the logistics out, helping people, and at the same time, worst case scenario, like I said, if I am quote unquote detained, it's going to shine a light. Here's an American citizen, passport holder, combat veteran. They're going to spin the heck out of who I am, and I think you know where that's going. But man, at least the light will be still here. So if that's the case, I would prefer not to. But worst case scenario, it's so that way I'm not disappointed. I'm not freaking out if all avenues of escape are cut off. Then it's like, oh, okay, all right, here's next phase of the operation. All right.
There's the old saying, I think somebody said to me, I'm perfectly willing to die for my country, but I'd much rather have my enemy die for his, right?
Yes.
And you are a light, man. And I just want to give you the mic for one last piece here. Anything you want to share, anything you feel like you haven't been able to say, in the other, you haven't done much media yet, but this is a place where we don't have Viagra commercials,
Yeah. Right.
anything that you want to say that you want to make sure folks hear before we wrap this up.
Yeah. Don't forget about Ukraine. Don't forget about these people, because they're doing what we would do if our homeland was attacked. Yeah, just don't forget about them. Don't let our leaders forget about them. I think that's the important part. Yeah, that's it. Don't forget about these people.
Quan, you are a light. You are everything that's great about America and about the West.
Thank you.
And your personal journey is the fucking stuff of movies, man. You're a real inspiration, a hero to me and to my family and to anyone who's known you.
Thank you.
You've touched so many lives, throughout your life, and I know in many ways it's just getting started. So I am humbled that you took this time to join us. I am inspired by what you do. I am grateful that you're there, and just love the shit out of you, man. And sending
Thanks.
you and your
Appreciate
team and the
this.
people around you all the
Yep.
support we can. I hope
Awesome.
you'll stay in touch. We'll keep folks updated
Oh,
and send as
definitely.
much support as we
Yep.
can. Until then, when we get back, we'll have a Linkin Park concert. Maybe there'll be a Linkin Park concert in Kyiv. That would be pretty fucking awesome.
There you go. Yes, I think Chester would approve of that. Definitely.
We appreciate you very much, my friend. Thank you for all you do, and
Yep.
stay vigilant. Stay safe.
Yep. Thank you, Paul.